But it's just these small incremental changes done consistently over a long period of time. And now 2 years have gone by. So for the last 2 years, you've been eating an apple a day, you've been eating more produce on top of that, you've been getting more fiber, and you're moving more, and you've added in resistance training, and you're getting in that stretching that feels good, so your back's starting to feel better. Do you see how all of these changes can amplify the other ones? You start doing one little thing, and then you want to do 2, and then you want to do 3. And as you start to make these habits the norm, when you fall off, when you get sick or your kids get sick and you just have a bad week, you want to get back on the path, because this isn't something that was prescribed to you. This is something you've been cultivating and developing. This is on you. You've been making these changes. So now you have just progressively shifted from helpless and feeling lost to very capable and having a plan and having a path. This episode of the Build Beyond podcast is going to be directed at people who feel a little bit lost. I think there are a lot of people out there who are struggling with pain, they're struggling with injuries. And as they're struggling with these pain and injuries, they're seeing the things that they want to be able to do or that they need to be able to do get farther and farther away from them. This could be fun activities. This could be ideal vacations. This could be sports. And maybe you're still doing a lot of the things that you want to do, but because of the pain and because of the fear of injury or re-injury, you're not able to enjoy them the way you wanted to. Maybe this is someone who has pain or injury and it's affecting work, and you're scared because you're thinking that if this keeps progressing and getting worse over time, you might not be able to do your job as well, or maybe you won't be able to do your job at all. I think a lot of people who are in this boat are also dealing with other health issues often. So this could be someone who's got chronic episodes of pain and has had an injury in the past that they're worried about, but maybe they're also struggling with obesity. Maybe they've got heart problems. Maybe they're pre-diabetic or they're diabetic at this point. Maybe there's some mental health struggles out there, anxiety, depression, or they're just really prone to stress. Maybe there's people out there listening who have a combination. And I think this is probably one of the more common things that I see. If there's someone who feels a bit hopeless and a bit lost, there's usually multiple things going on in their life. And I had this discussion recently, actually, with my college students. I teach a class at a college, and I think when you're talking to people in their late teens, early 20s, there's a lot of optimism. I think life hasn't really gotten to them yet. Some of them it has. I mean, there are a lot of young people who deal with health issues, deal with pain. But I think for the most part, the demographic, life hasn't hit them hard yet. And they're just not really thinking about it. But when I try to explain this, usually they can picture someone in their life that maybe feels this way or has felt this way, or they think, oh man, maybe this is actually what this person's going through. Because I don't think it's hard for anyone to acknowledge that, as you get older, let's say you're young and you're healthy and you're active, and then you are in your mid-20s and you get married and you start having kids. And let's say you have 3 or 4 kids and you have 2 people in the house working, and at some point you get some type of injury and now you've got pain. And over this course of having kids and working on your career, physical activity has gone down a lot. And I think that's something that maybe like young people, like college kids, take for granted, because every hour a college student gets up and moves to a different location. And even though they sit all day, there is a lot of movement built into the college lifestyle, especially because they're walking everywhere around campus for the most part. And that just doesn't happen a lot. There's in the working world, when you have a desk job, every hour or two, you don't get up and walk to a different building and then do your work there. It's something that's quite unique to being a college student. So there's this pattern for a lot of people: get married, have kids, focus on your career, or just maybe don't focus on your career. Once you start having kids, you got to kind of give that up, or it takes a back seat. And that's hard for a lot of people. And then, you're dealing with everything else that you have to deal with in adult life. Cars break down and they've got to get fixed. There's stuff that goes on with the house. Then the kids start playing sports. So you've got kids with different interests going different ways. And then there's school programs, and there's lunches, and there's sickness. And then all this other stuff is going on. So as all of this mounts in your life, something's got to give. And a lot of times you stop taking care of yourself. And I think this is maybe, in my experience, more common with women, because they feel the burden, especially mothers, they feel that burden of, well, I've got to be super mom. I've got to hold it together. And I will sacrifice, the things that make me happy and that keep me healthy and that fulfill me, so that my kids can live the lot, I can give everything to the family. And it's admirable, but it does take a toll. So this goes on, let's say, for 20 years, and now you've got your kids are starting to go off to college, or and maybe it's been 10 years and they're just more self-sufficient. But for the last decade or two, you haven't been physically active. You haven't been eating like you used to. You've been gaining weight. Maybe you had an injury along the way, so you've got this chronic pain going on. You don't feel like you have any hobbies anymore because you haven't had time for hobbies. So even if you got time back, you wouldn't know what to do with it. And that actually reminds me, if you don't have little kids right now, maybe you haven't got into Bluey. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with Bluey, get on Disney Channel and watch some Bluey episodes. Even if you're an adult without kids, you'll really enjoy them. But there's a great episode where it's a family of dogs, and they go on vacation and they go to the beach, and the two little daughters, the little dogs, they're having so much fun in this condo. They're going through everything. They're playing on the chairs, and they want to do a bubble bath. And the dad is pretty carefree. He's putting away groceries, and the mom is really high strung. And the dad says, "Why don't you just go out to the beach? I got the kids." And she's trying to get the kids out the door to, make them have fun, but they're goofing around in a bubble bath and playing on the beds and playing with the toilets and doing all kinds of stuff that little kids would do. And they're just having a blast doing stuff that the mom doesn't understand. We have all this stuff at home. Why are you playing in here? Let's go out to the beach. And the dad just says, "You know what? I'll watch them. You go out." And the mom goes out to the beach, and she's got everything. And it's this beautiful scene, and she's got her book and everything, and she can't relax. She doesn't know how to read a book and relax. So she ends up going back and having fun with the kids and having fun with the family. But I think that that episode, I definitely see that in my wife, but even for me, I feel that sometimes, where if you get free time, you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to repurpose it. And then you feel guilty because oh man, this free time is so precious and so rare. I'm just wasting it doing nothing. So if this goes on long enough and you're dealing with pain and you come see someone like me, I've got to help you kind of unravel this. So it's more than just therapy. But I want to get back to the reason why I wanted to record this podcast episode. I was thinking about a parable, and this is something that stuck out to me. I went to Catholic school for 9 years when I was a kid. So there some stuff is kind of like burned into my brain. And one of the parables that I always remembered and liked as a kid was the one, and I may butcher this. I don't remember what book in the Bible it's from, but there's a landowner or a wealthy man who takes off for a period of time, and he has 3 servants, and the 3 servants are not equal in some way. So he decides, well, I'm going to give them all some money and ask them to take care of the money, but I'm not going to distribute it equally. So one servant got a lot of money because he was more capable, and one servant got less money, and then the least capable got the least amount of money. And so he takes off. Well, the two more capable servants who got the most money, they went and invested it. Now, there is an inherent risk with investing money, but they ended up coming out on top and they ended up making more money. Well, the servant who had the least ability and got the least amount of money, he was scared. And so he took the money, he didn't want to lose it, and he buried it and he hid it. And when the landowner came back, the two servants who had invested said, hey, we invested your money. Here it is. We helped make you money. And he was very happy. And then the other servant said, I didn't want to lose I didn't want to lose your money. So here is exactly what you gave me. And he scolded him. And I think the moral to the story is obvious. We're all given different gifts. And some people have it easier than others. They're more gifted, or they have different circumstances. And comparison can be the thief of joy. I think most of us have heard that before. And I think what happens with a lot of people, they're going down a path that's contributing to pain and injury. It may be contributing to poor health. And they feel lost and hopeless. And then they go and they look at their friends who maybe aren't on that same path. And maybe they went to college together. Maybe they grew up together. And they used to be very equal, and now they are not in many ways. And that gets really hard on people. And I think that's where a lot of times the hopelessness comes in, because people will, what's the point? I can't accomplish that. But I think the important thing to realize that, you may not have genetics on your side. Some people are genetically predisposed to certain chronic conditions. You may put on body weight and hold body weight in a way that you don't like, but it's just genetically, that's how it is. You may be more prone to stress and anxiety. There are a lot of things that are out of your control. It's not your fault. You may have been raised in a certain way. You may be in a certain environment right now that you don't want. Maybe you're a single parent and that's not what you had planned on. Maybe you had planned on having a very specific career, but that didn't work out. A lot of these things are out of your control. They're not your fault. But the moral of the story, if we go back to that parable, is that, you got to take what you got, what you've been given, the gifts you've been given, and do the most that you can with them. And it doesn't matter what other people who have more gifts than you do, what they do, because they're always going to be better than you in a certain way. But I don't really think that matters if you're just focusing on yourself and you're trying to make the gains. So how does this actually look for someone? So let's say it's been 20 years going down the path that you don't want to go to. Now you don't like the way your body looks. You don't like the way you feel. You've got some chronic conditions. Maybe you're pre-diabetic. You're taking some blood pressure medication. You've got extra body weight. You haven't exercised in years. And you're just unhappy with a lot of different things. Well, what if we could just say, you're going to go out every time when you go to the grocery store once a week, you're going to buy 7 apples and you're going to line them up on the counter. And every day you're going to eat 1 apple. And that's your nutrition change. Maybe you don't love apples, but you're going to do it. You're going to get extra fiber that you weren't getting before. You're going to get those extra nutrients. And ideally, it's going to help you make different dietary choices because you won't feel as hungry. And that's your breakfast. You're going to eat an apple. Not that hard, and most people could do that. And let's say from a physical activity standpoint, you make the commitment that every time you park your car in a parking lot, you're going to park instead of the closest spot possible, you're going to park in the farthest spot possible. What's that going to do? It's going to increase your step count. So you'll increase physical activity. So you make those 2 commitments. Maybe you do that for a while. And then maybe at some point, early or pretty quickly, you decide that you are going to commit 2 minutes a day to stretching. Why stretching? I don't know, because it makes you feel good. It doesn't really matter. Let's say you feel like you have tight hamstrings and you feel better, your back feels better after you do some hamstring stretch. So you find a good hamstring stretch on YouTube that you like, and you do that for 2 minutes a day. And let's say you keep up those 3 habits for 365 days. You got some days on there on and on where you're not complete, or maybe you've got a week, you get sick one week or your kids get sick and you fall off, but you get right back on it. So for the most part, for a year, you're on this. Well, you've done a couple things. One, from a nutrition standpoint, you've increased your fiber intake and your nutrient intake. And then from a physical activity standpoint, you've increased your physical activity. So you would probably objectively be healthier just from making those little changes and doing them consistently over a long period of time. You also have something else working for you at this point. You have what I've heard called the healthy user bias. So as soon as you start doing things that are healthy for you, it's a snowball effect. You want to do other things because we've experienced that in the other direction. You got on a diet and then you fell off one week, so then you're just completely off the diet. Or you decided you're going to start working out and you go for a week or two and then you miss a couple days, so you just give up. So you can snowball in the other direction, but you start using momentum in the direction that you want to go. So now you've been doing this for a while, you start to make other choices. So you think, okay, well, could I eat an apple and an orange? Could I add more fruit or more produce? That's only going to make you healthier. And what would you want to cut out? Maybe spontaneously you eat that apple in the morning, you're not hungry anymore. And when you get to work, that box of donuts, maybe once a week you say no to that. Okay, that's going to have an effect. Maybe you switch from regular soda to diet soda. That's going to have an effect. So you start to make, if you do it long enough, you're going to start to just spontaneously make different choices that are going to be helpful. It's the same thing with physical activity. Maybe stretching for 2 minutes a day is boring, but you've carved out that 2 minutes. So you decide, well, I'm going to start adding in strength training. So I'm going to start doing incline push-ups off the countertop and then some squats. And for 2 minutes, you just do like 5 and 5, going back and forth. Well, now you're adding in resistance training. Well, that's going to have an effect. Or maybe you like the 2 minutes of stretching, but then you add additional 2 minutes of strength training. So maybe you, in creative ways, just spontaneously start adding more physical activity and you start making other dietary changes. But it's just these small incremental changes done consistently over a long period of time. And now 2 years have gone by. So for the last 2 years, you've been eating an apple a day. You've been eating more produce on top of that. You've been getting more fiber, and you're moving more, and you've added in resistance training, and you're getting in that stretching that feels good. So your back's starting to feel better. Do you see how all of these changes can amplify the other ones? You start doing one little thing and then you want to do 2, and then you want to do 3. And as you start to make these habits the norm, when you fall off, when you get sick or your kids get sick and you just have a bad week, you want to get back on the path, because this isn't something that was prescribed you. This is something you've been cultivating and developing. This is on you. You've been making these changes. So now you have just progressively shifted from helpless and feeling lost to very capable and having a plan and having a path. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to invest a lot. And I feel like sometimes people have this all or nothing thing. Well, it's like, oh, if I can't do it, if I'm not all in, then I'm not going to get any benefit out of it. And that's just not true. And going back to that parable from the Bible, I feel like that points it out quite well. Had that servant who had only gotten a little bit of money, had he gone out and invested it and lost the money, I would imagine that the moral of that he would have been forgiven, because it's like, well, you did the best that you could. You don't know how to invest, and I didn't really give you a lot of money. So we lost a little bit, but maybe we can learn from that. I don't want to put my own spin on the Bible, but there are other stories out there like that where usually there's forgiveness for trying and making a mistake. So, you might get out there and try something and it's not going to work. well, it's not really a failure if you just try something else. And these don't have to be really big shifts. Actually, the really big shifts are hard to maintain. So for most people who are like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this, and they have this long list, I'm going to do all this stuff starting next week. I don't ever want to slow down their momentum and enthusiasm, but I don't usually have a lot of faith that those massive shifts are going to stick over a long period of time. So I think that the little stuff, the little changes can be far more powerful because it is like investing. It's like investing in your retirement. You can go in there and you can dump a bunch of money in and you can be really aggressive, but it's hard to do that over a long period of time. And if you get in there and you just start making small investments and you have a conservative plan and you give it enough time, it's going to compound and you're going to make some gains. And the sooner the better, but it's never really too late to start because you can always make progress. So I hope that's helpful. And if this speaks to you and you need help and you don't know what changes you could make for your specific issue to get the ball rolling, that's a good time to have a conversation with someone like me. And if I don't practice, if you're listening to this and you don't live in Michigan and you're looking for someone in your area, a healthcare provider or a coach, reach out to me. I may know someone, or I may know someone who knows someone, or I can help point you in the right direction. All right. Thanks for listening. I'll see you soon.